We've learned how to create a function definition that takes in two arguments, right? And we need to list them as parameters here in the function definition, and we need to pass in the arguments that we want to pass in. Our program here prints out what we want to print out. It prints out num1 is greater than num2, or num2 is greater than num1, or it prints out the numbers are equal. What if I wanted the program to print out num1 is greater than num2 the first time I ran it, and then the second time I ran it I wanted to say num1 is the bigger number, and then the third time I ran it I wanted to say num2 is the smaller number, right? Well, this program here could not do that, because every time it runs greater, it's going to print out one of these messages. Right? It's going to print out one of those messages here, it's going to print out one of those messages here, and it's going to print out one of those messages here. So we can't have the program do exactly what we want, but we can. Okay, we can, but we need to change things around a little bit. We need to, instead of printing out the message in the function definition, instead we're going to have the function definition return a value. Right. Let me show you how that's done over here. So we have this max function, max program, and I'm going to make a function definition for max. Max is going to perform the same way as greater. It's going to take in num1 and it's going to take in num2. But instead of printing out num1 is greater than num2 or num2 is greater than num1, I'm going to have max return the bigger number. So here I'm going to say if num1 is greater than num2, then I'm going to return num1. And I'm going to say else return num2. Okay. So now I have this max variable, and it returns a number. So if I use it, I could say max 5 and 6. Now, how is this program going to run? Well, it runs, I press the green flag, or the play button, and it ignores the function definition. It goes to 6, 7, it goes to 8. On line 8, it jumps up to line 1. Num1 is equal to 5, num2 is equal to 6. It comes into the if, and it says if 5 is greater than 6. Is that true or is that false? That is false. So it does not do line 3. And it goes to line 4, and it does line 5. On line 5, it returns num2. Now, what is num2? Num2 is the 6, right? So num2 is equal to 6. So it returns 6. And where does it return to? It returns to where the function was called. So it goes back down to 8, and this function call is replaced with the value that's in num2. So the value that's in num2 is 6, and it goes to line 9 and ends our program. So I'm going to try running this to show you what it does. To run the program, you can see down here in the console it does nothing. Okay, and what's the reason why it does nothing? It's because down here on line 8, this function call gets replaced with the return value of the function definition. So again, let's run through the program. It ignores all of this, does line 8. From line 8, it jumps up to line 1. Num1 is equal to 5. Num2 is equal to 6. This is false, so it does the else, and it returns num2. Num2 is the value 6. So when it returns, where does it go? It returns back to where the function was called. And the function was called right here. And it replaces the function call with the return value, 6. Okay. And then it goes to line 9 and ends the program. Notice here that we are not doing anything with that 6. Okay. So since we're not doing anything with the return value of max, it does nothing in our program. Okay. It's just like me putting 7 right there. Right. I run the program. It still runs. Right. There's no error, but we're not doing anything with the 7. Right. But if I do a print and I say print 7, then we're going to see something here in our console. And that's exactly what we need to do with our return value for max. Okay, so I can come here and I could say print max. And if I run the program now, it prints out the 6. If I make this 15 and I print it, it's going to print out 15. If I make it 116 here, it's going to print out 116 for the very reason that I told you earlier, right? Because it returns to where the function was called, and it returns the value that's inside of this variable. All right, so here we want to print out, we want it to print out in a more easily read format, right? So maybe I could say the bigger of the two numbers is, and I could plus sign, right? And if I run the program now, you can see here it errors out because you cannot concatenate a string with an integer. So here is the string, and here's the integer. Right? The only way we can concatenate strings is if both of the operands, this one and this one, are both strings. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this to a string. Now what's going to happen is it's going to come to line 8. It's going to try to concatenate, but it can't because it needs to turn this expression here into a string. But it can't because this is a function call. So it's going to go ahead and run the function definition for max. It's going to go through this. It's going to return num2, which is 116. So it's going to come back here to the function call for max, replace it with 116, and then the str is going to turn it into the string 116. And then it's going to concatenate the two guys, and we're going to get our print together, right? And the concatenating, it turns it all into one string like that, and then it prints out. So let me go back in time and run the program, and you can see that's exactly what it does, right? And of course here at the end we probably want to also concatenate a period, and everything's going to look better, right? So now what we can do is we can make it print out different things, right? We can say the smaller of the two numbers. Oh no, we can't. What we can say is, maybe we can do that is the bigger number, right? And then maybe I could put over here unfortunately this is a larger number. All right. So now notice here I'm calling max 1, 2, 3 times, but my prints are not the same. They're not saying, oh, num1 is greater than num2 or num2 is greater than num1. Now when I run the program, it gives a different output for each time I call max, right? And that's one of the powers of having your function definition return a value. It allows more flexibility so that we don't have to print out the same message every time. We could print out a different kind of message. Okay. So that's what I want to say, and let's go ahead and do a couple of challenge exercises.